Hey, welcome back to Auntie's Cakery. I know it's kind of a mess here because I'm in a hurry to get to the venue, but I wanted to pop on and say thank you for watching, and I'm going to show you how I made this beautiful wedding cake. I baked a delicious chocolate cake a couple days beforehand, and I have them in the fridge to get a little cold. And now I'm using a Wilton cake leveler. So first I will slice a bottom piece. And I don't forget to take that bottom paper off. It'd be awful to try to cut into that, wouldn't it? And then I'll go back and slice the top off. And I'll have two perfectly even layers. I'll do that with a 9-inch cake, a 6-inch cake, and a 12-inch cake. Now it's time to get this stacked. I'm starting with a 9-inch. Put a little buttercream on the base, just so that cake will stick and not be moving around. Then on the very edge, I'm making a buttercream wall. Why? Because I want to keep this delicious. I know, I say delicious a lot. Homemade raspberry filling inside the cake. For the second layer, I'm also going to do a buttercream wall. Even though the inside is a smooth chocolate buttercream, I don't want that brown showing on the outside, so I use a white buttercream wall. Did I mention this chocolate buttercream is delicious? Using my angled spatula, I just make that so nice and smooth. Stick on that third layer of cake and make sure it's in the right spot. Don't want it sticking out too far. And this one is also going to be some fresh raspberry filling. And the top piece, there we go. Put a blob of buttercream up there. This is going to be the crumb coat. What is a crumb coat, you ask? Well, it is a very thin layer of buttercream just to keep the crumbs stuck to the cake. Don't want any of those dark brown crumbs showing on the outside of the cake. So using my bench scraper, I just scraped that big layer of icing off the top. I'm going to put some of that icing back onto the sides. And again, scrape most of it off. Only needs to be a thin layer. And with my edge tool, I'll just clean up that corner and stick it in the fridge. I also did this to a 12-inch and a 6-inch cake. After they're cold, I took the 6-inch cake and I'm doing a second layer of buttercream. And this layer is quite thick. Because I am going to texture it. Even though it's going to be textured, I like to make the cake a good shape first. That is a professional tip. Creating some guidelines with my bench scraper because I want this texture going up and down. Oh man, there is a piece of chocolate crumb in my buttercream. Dig that puppy out of there. Even though it would taste good, it doesn't look very good. Then I'll take my angled bench scraper and go up and down. It is supposed to be a rustic style cake, so I'm not too worried about how straight these lines are. And last one, looks like it left little pokies up there at the top, so I'm going to smooth them down as well before I add some texture also to the top. Going from the outside in, and each scrape I wipe off the excess buttercream on my scraper. I think you can see it down there in the right corner. Ooh, looks so good! Now I'm moving on to the 9-inch cake. This is a quick icer I'm using. It gets such a perfect layer of icing right on top. I'm smoothing out this icing and making the cake nice and smooth before I texture it also. I'll use my little edge tool to make the edge nice and sharp. So for this layer, I want it slightly textured. I'm using a spatula that has a little wider tip, and I'm very, very gently placing some texture on this. I'm thinking diagonal is going to look good. So softly rubbing. I don't want these grooves too deep, but just a subtle texture here. After I've got the side done, I will do the top also. And you notice I'm only going in a little bit because I'm going to be having a cake on top of it. And speaking of a cake on top, you never ever want to stack a cake unless you have support dowels. In this case, I'm using a couple boba straws. I'll stick that in the cake, move it up slightly, snap it off, and then push it back down in. For the 9-inch tier, I'm using 3 straws. And then that tier can go into the fridge. Now it's time to work on the bottom tier, the 12-inch. Get my second layer of icing on there, nice and thick. Smooth it out. Then I'm going to put buttercream on the base, just for decorative purposes. Then I'll take my small spatula again, and while my pottery wheel is going round and round, I will just scrape off one layer after another. And again, I'm scraping the buttercream off of that little spatula pretty often. Now it's time for the top. I have so much extra buttercream in a bowl, I'm just going to use that instead of using my quick icer. You know, as I do the voiceovers for these videos and I'm watching myself spread, I think, that is so satisfying. It's just so fun to watch. Flatten it out. And now I'm going to add some texture to the top as well. And again, no stacking cakes unless you have some supports in there. Time to stack. All my cakes have been refrigerated for at least an hour, long enough to firm up that buttercream so I can actually hold them. Plop it on there. Smooth out the little places that need smoothing. Do the same thing with the 6-inch cake. Put a little buttercream on there to stick it down. Plop it on, and then add some buttercream along that bottom edge. Now that the cake is all stacked, I am going to add some flowers. I've got all my tools here and some flowers ready to snip. Stick that beautiful big white one and the pink one in a straw. And after I've got those in a straw, I will stick them into the cake right where I want them. Now, us cake decorators hear horror stories about how sometimes florists will take their stems right out of the dirty water and stick them into the cake. Oh my goodness, gives me nightmares. So I always stick my flowers in a straw before I stick them into the cake. And that way, the stems do not actually get into the food that we eat. Going to put a couple peonies? I'm not sure how to say that. Good thing I'm not a florist or a botanist, right? Starting with the biggest ones, put a couple in the straw. I'll put some on the bottom layer and the middle layer and the top. My good friend's daughter is the bride, and she wanted kind of an S pattern of these flowers. And later she told me the flowers were perfect, and that just made me feel so good. So after I've got the big flowers, I'm just putting some little flowers around it in a pattern that looks good. Putting some blue flowers in. I think I'll add some leaves here too. I think it's always nice to add some greenery here. Stick those on. I'll do that with all the bunches of flowers. Now I'm almost done. I'm just going to add some extra little ones here and there for a final touch. Oh, it is so beautiful. One thing about these rustic buttercream cakes is the flowers really make the piece. And I'm so happy that the couple loved their cake. I love reading your comments, so if you have one, let me know and I will respond as soon as I can. Life is kind of busy right now. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Bye.